Traditional owners of the land and pay respect to the elders, both past, present and emerging. As this is a Catholic night, I'm going to concentrate on our environmental credentials. For those who don't know, I'm a Cairns local, born and bred, been here all my life, married with 5 young children and 12 grandchildren in Cairns. So I've got a lot to look forward to make this place a good place to live. Cairns is a popular place to live, work and play, and our unique position as the international gateway to the two world's most precious natural wonders, the World Heritage listed Great Barrier Reef and the wet tropics rainforest, means we must ensure that growth is sustainable, appropriately located, resilient to natural hazards and climate challenges. To this end, your current Unity-led Council is currently working on a multi-year project called Towards 2050 Shaping Cairns Growth Strategy, which is being informed by extensive community and stakeholder input at each stage, as well as supporting technical studies, of which Catholic and many of you here tonight have been involved. Some of the key drivers and challenges of growth include protecting our rural and natural landscapes to ensure development does not continue to expand into these valuable areas, maintaining our lifestyle, protecting places of cultural heritage significance and recognising the values and aspirations of the First Peoples, ensuring future growth is risk responsive, responding and adapting to climate change and encouraging development that is suitable and resilient to our tropical climate. That is just to name a few. Biodiversity strategy. A core part of the Towards 2050 is a discrete biodiversity strategy which has been added in on top of our other strategies to directly consider opportunities for biorefugia, threatened species and stepping stone habitat. As part of hazard mitigation, 5 studies are already underway in this space, and as Lucy said, your council is a leader in this area, and that is flood, coastal hazards, landslip, bushfire and erosion, which with the fundamental consideration around frequency, tolerability and planning outcomes. The Towards 2050 strategy, together with the latest Far North Queensland Regional Plan, which is currently underway, will inform and provide the foundation for the preparation of a new planning scheme for Cairns, which Council is due to commence work on later this year. A Unity-led Council acknowledges our environmental responsibility and more with our recently released policies, nurturing environmental sustainability and livability in the suburbs. And I'll just highlight a couple of points in our policies. With continued commitment towards net zero council operations by 2030, supporting the 2040 waste strategy plan and by educating and empowering our community and council to reduce waste that is going to landfill in our region. Reducing water demand with the continued rollout of our smart water meters. Securing our water supply by delivering a water security project stage 1, and that is a new water treatment plant with resources from the Hannah and Mulgrave rivers. Increase our green canopy and tree cover with future developments and housing projects to reduce urban heat from roofs, footpaths and roads. Support communities by reviewing existing coastal protection strategies as part of the learnings from tropical cyclone Jasper to mitigate future impacts on residents and properties. Increase native seedling generation by 30% over the next 4 years for greening projects. We're currently doing 45,000 per year now. A unique coastal environment is an important community and economic asset and is highly valued by residents and 2.9 million annual visitors alike. But our coastline is dynamic and always changing. To this end, Council has Coastal has its adaptation strategy, or CHAS, to do council operations. Council has been working with the Queensland Government through the Q Coast 2100 program to plan for and respond to current and future coastal changes from erosion, storm tide inundation and sea level rise from now until the year 2100. The development of our Cairns Coast Adapting for the Future has helped us understand what long-term coastal changes mean to our community, our businesses and our infrastructure, and to plan for resilience. Our Cairns Coast is a strategy that will guide our mitigation and adaptation actions into the year 2100. State of the Environment Reports. 1 minute, 3 seconds. While State of the Environment reporting is not a statutory requirement of local governments in Queensland, a unity-led council considers this to be best practice. And I'll just cut a bit more because she'll cut me off. And we publish these every year. Finally, our Cairns Eco Fiesta, which is Queensland's premier sustainable festival. A free event held every year. You know this cost council $250,000 a year? But we put it on because we think it's important. So as you can see, the Unity Council is serious about us doing our bit for the environment, and will continue to do so in the years to come. Thank you.
My facilitation training told me that as a facilitator, you're the guardian of the process. So I am always a fine facilitator. Thank you, Terry. And also, yeah, we're really happy that Council's taken on Eco Fiesta, which originated as Enviro Fiesta, and something that Catholic used to run, and it's a lot of work. We're really happy you guys have taken it on, so we're keen for that to stay in Council's hands. Thank you, Terry, and I believe next what did I provide Dennis? Dennis, please provide Dennis.
Okay, hello everybody. And also I'd like to acknowledge the Council, General Guard, and the others past, present, and emerging. Full disclosure, I've been a member of CAFNEC Group for 30 years, and I was the president of CAFNEC until 2 years ago for 6 years. So I do have a lot of skin in the game, as they say. And so I'm very familiar with a lot of this stuff, but I haven't taken anything for granted. I live and breathe the environment, 33 years of engagement on the coastal space. The brief I was given was environmental conservation and climate action, so I'll try to do 2.5 minutes on each. The coastal line that you now see, the defined line for the Cairns Linear Corridor, is largely down to the protection of this Trinity, which I was behind in full measure with a lot of other people when it was bought back by the state. The other thing in which I was heavily involved in, of course, a couple of years ago, was in transitioning Jack Barnes across into the airport, and it was saved from destruction. Yeah, thank you, a few waves there. That green line, by the way, this Trinity, is something that I think we all now recognise is untouchable, because really realistically it can never become a satellite city again. And then moving up the coast, we look at Taylor Point, and we think of what that could add to the value with that walking track, cycling tracks, and so on. And as you know, that's been a prime campaign centre for me, and also for Caribbean Division 9. The other areas that I've been really involved in, of course, have been with Tree Force, and that's for 30 years. I do bird talks and bird tours and educational tours explaining the natural environment, and have done for years through the education sector, and also, of course, now as a guide. And I think, there is a saying that, you've got to be in it to love it, and that's what we try to do. We try to engage people through teaching, through explaining the wonderful biodiversity and so on that we have here in Cairns, and we hope that they take away from that something that will live on. I mean, the shocking statistic that came from George Morfield's article when he set up the rewilding project in Wales, and he found that kids from London had never even seen a cow. I mean, that is scary. We are so blessed here. We have so much to offer, and I think that council has a significant role to play in that. One of the things also I'm quite proud of is the fact that we've managed to get rid of second generation anticoagulants. When we're dishing out rat poison, we've actually transferred that across now to Cilantro, which is a third generation, and that will kill the owls, which is a big impact, of course, with our rufous owls in time. Protecting our trees, there is a question coming up. I claim a lot of credit, by the way, for tree plotter, because working with Prior, with the birding group, and also now with the working group I have at council, we've done an awful lot of work in advancing the tree protection. There's also a question coming up, so I'll follow through with that. We know that green spaces, and we know that walking, cycling, etc., are better and beneficial for our mental and physical health and well-being, and improving environmental awareness. And a lot of things that people don't realise also is that it's proven for dollars, dollars and cents. People actually make money out of the environment to the extent that we don't realise. And of course, people are here because the saying goes that they're here because it's the best place in Australia to live. Again and again, people say that's why they're here: environment and livability. Now, I'll just say a few words about climate action, and in specific, the resilience stuff I believe is coming up in one of the questions. So I won't go into the Barron Delta stuff at the moment. And it's true what Terry says, the council has done a lot of good things. And I don't want to repeat what he said, because obviously I agree with most of it, and I think that's fair to say. One thing I think that we do need, and this is a tangible difference that I want to make between Terry and me, and that is, I think the procurement policy in council needs to be much more focused on purchasing goods that have a low carbon footprint, and I think that's something that can be built into the purchasing agreement of council. And that is a clear difference, and I don't think that's happening nearly sufficiently at the moment. The other thing that we mentioned, electric vehicles, obviously council needs to move more on that. The growth strategy to 2050 is an interesting one, and Terry mentioned a few things there. One thing I think that is clear in this is that it's very fuzzy. And once again, we saw the wonderful plans, and a lot of them are sitting on shelves, and they're all great plans. What we need is a holistic, centered, integrated approach to the growth of cares. And one thing I'm really pushing for is this idea of a growth of an integrated urban development transport plan. This is a plan that will join the dots. It links up housing, it links up transport, and it links up all the other aspects of our life that we consider in terms of where we're going to build our houses, whether it's appropriate that they be built on such and such a place, and that needs to be factored into the new town plan. We're going to be seeing a lot more of it. I'm just going to mention what that has in relation to climate. Housing, transport, urban planning I've just touched on. And that is going to be something that really we're going to talk about in the questions when it comes to what happened in the Mayoral Delta. Safe places to build. And when we're talking about this long-term plan of integrated urban development, we need to factor in there also issues related to what sort of character these buildings have and how they fit into our tropical environment. And we're not doing that at the moment. Much more work needs to be done there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. I'm sure you could have shared a lot more. I believe, I'm sorry, I've left my agenda down there. Amy from Team Eden is up next.
Good evening, everyone. I too would like to acknowledge the traditional owners and thank you for the lovely welcome to country. So I'm Amy Eden like the garden. And we're in the garden city of Cairns. And as they say, from little things, big things grow. And I'm here today to talk about that. Growing our beautiful garden city of Cairns. This is about the vision. So imagine. I remember when I moved here in 2003, hailing from flat country of Northern Territory. My plan was to come to JCU to finish my degree and get back to Darwin. But the problem was, I fell in love with the mountains. Probably the same reason that you fell in love with the place. It's gorgeous. We're sandwiched between two World Heritage natural wonders. And I don't take it for granted. And I know that you don't either, otherwise we wouldn't be here. So when I think about our future, I think about your future. And you want to love this place for the reasons that we love it. And that means we need to be the custodians, we need to be the guardians, we need to be better. Absolutely, council does some amazing things. Yes, we are leaders in this region, but we can do better. Before becoming a councillor, I did a little stint in the Department of Environment and Science in the Indigenous Financing Ranger program. I was really fortunate to be the program lead for Dully Group, which was the Yuri-Kanji Rangers, and I got to learn intimately how they care for their country and how they have, obviously, for many, many years. And I know that some of those practices can come into council so much more. And as the youngest mayoral candidate, the same age, mind you, as when Kevin Byrne was first elected, so not still in nappies, as some people might think. I think I'm a little bit optimistic. I'm a little bit hopeful that we can actually collaborate as a community. And I've shared some of the dreams about this green channel. What is a green channel? Well, our lives are moving more and more onto the digital platforms, and we have an opportunity to educate, inform, and empower our community to be part of it as we move forward together. And a green channel could be a collaborative piece between, as an example, Cairns Regional Council, CAFNET, Terrain NRM, Wetmark, whoever we wanted to be. And we all would take turns to be posting something onto this green channel to make sure we have engagement, to make sure we have education, to make sure we have ownership, that we've all got a role to play in making sure that our Cairns, our beautiful Cairns region, is the best that it can truly be. Also, prior to being a councillor, I was one of the founding members of the Mayoral Community Garden. Now that is a garden that is a living symbol of hope. It came out of very, very tragic circumstances, but I'm really proud to say that it is still a living symbol of hope here today. And that garden not only produces produce that feed people, but it is a meeting place, such as the Institute here as a meeting place today where we're learning and connecting with one another. That is one of the key elements to a beautiful and happy, healthy environment, is to make sure that our community have a sense of belonging, have a sense of ownership and connection. And that does that. When I ran for council in 2020, I was running for Division 5, and I thought it would be kind of cool to have a bit of a slogan, top 5 for Div 5, the priorities, so people could really get on board. And one of them that I ended up with was cooler and greener. Cooler and greener. Well, I thought it was pretty cool, literally. But I did cop a lot of flack. Just don't use the word green, no, I'm proud to use the word green. I want green streets. I know that we can have a better Cairns, a garden city. We can be cooler and greener, we can mitigate the heat. And we can have a happier life. Our animals can have happier lives. That is really important. That's part of the reason why we're here. One of the things that Dennis seems to keep forgetting every time he talks about his win with the Jack Barnes Law was I played a key role in that from council's point of view. Words matter. We must mean what we say and say what we mean. There was a motion to council that would see that boardwalk ripped up and the land returned back to the airport. But by changing some of the words, and saying that we weren't going to permanently close it and that we weren't going to rip up the boardwalk, it was able to be saved. So when Dennis and the community crew were working on the ground with the airport and the rangers to make that happen, I was working in council to make sure that we could change some words and hand over the money that we were going to use to rip up the boardwalk to hand it over to the airport. So it lives on, and what a legacy it is. It's so amazing. If you haven't been there, you've got to get there. And T5. T5. Does anyone know why it's called T5? Yes. Tree 5? Is that right?
It's tree 5.
Correct.
Shot down 6 with the bus shelter.
There you go. We're talking about T5, and it's tree number 5 at the library site. Honestly, I cannot tell you how scarily close we were to losing T5. Scarily close. But the community rallied. You rallied. I rallied. I called Lucy, I called Costa, Georgiana from Gardening Australia. I said, mate, I need a favour. We need to get to the tree. We need to let the community know what a beautiful asset this is. So the vision of the cooler and the greener is to increase the leaf index. What does that mean? That means more street trees, more little pocket lungs in and around our city. We're talking about our city growing. We need green spaces, not only for our minds, but for the environment, for our animals. So I want to thank you for being here tonight, investing your time into our future that I know we can grow together. Thank you.
And Paul's ready to go. Welcome to Paul.
Thank you. Well, I too come to Cairns for a visit and fell in love with what is such a beautiful place, obviously with the Great Barrier Reef and the mountains to the rear and the environmental opportunities here to get outside, get outdoors and really enjoy life. So we are at the point where we do have to manage a lot of challenges into the future, and obviously growth is one of those that we have to manage. We have to manage it in a very delicate way. I don't think anyone wants to manage growth in a way that it destroys the very fabric of those things that people love and enjoy here. So a tailor-led council would certainly continue, and I know from talking to Lucy that she believes that we've got great environmental officers within council, and obviously they will continue to be valued. The partnerships that council have with various environmental groups obviously will help inform how we move into the future. There are a number of things that I suppose I'd like to bring to the table. First and foremost, it's not only the managing of the growth, but it's managing in a way that we don't disturb not only the fragile areas, but those village lifestyles that people in Cairns love. So there's going to be a lot of thought into where we position medium and high density housing, and obviously locations that currently village lifestyles such as the Breaches, Stratford, out Redlands Valley and those sorts of places are not suitable for medium or high density. The CBD certainly is a location where it can be reliable. It can become a vibrant city that everyone can be proud to visit, live, work and invest in. There's no doubt that there's got to be a lot of vision put into what the CBD and what Cairns as a whole looks like in the future. We need to make sure that we are not only managing the people and the environment, but we need to leave a legacy, and we've got potential young leaders here in 30, 40, or in my case 70 years time that they might be standing for mayor. So, their future's in our hands, and I think all of us understand that. The issue around how we build it and where we build it is indeed something that is very fragile. We know that trying to supply areas in the outskirts with the water and the infrastructure is a challenge. We know that at the moment the budget that the next council inherits is going to be a challenge. So all these things we take into account for planning our future. I was asked recently about what our water plan was, and obviously we have been very fortunate living in far north Queensland, one of the wettest areas in Australia. Most people believe that you turn the tap on and there's going to be water flowing forever. So we do need to take into account that we need to manage our water supply as a scarcity. We need to change the culture of the community to make sure that even if we do have an abundant supply of water, we don't take that for granted. We change the culture and adapt to being a community that uses water scarcely. So that when we do move into the future, it's not a big shift from being a community that uses lots of water to a community that uses little. I do believe that any new build should be incorporating maintenance. They're a great opportunity. And I do hear a lot of arguments about the drinkability of that water, but there's not too much water in a household that's actually drank. I think the water is mainly used for other things such as health and hygiene, washing and so forth. So I think that needs to be taken into account. It needs to be a step process and an ongoing education process to make sure that we take the community on that journey and we get to a position where we're competitive in regards to our water usage with other like cities in the north and far north. I do believe that there's great opportunities to grow those sectors that drive the economy, and so certainly ecotourism and showcasing to the world what this region has. I don't think it would really reach their potential. There's some great opportunities coming our way with the Weekend Trail and obviously the opportunity at our back door here with the Smithfield tracks. I think we really need to be a destination of choice for ecotourism. We need to have a variety of activities so that people can come here. There obviously needs to be extensions to the Smithfield track. Having used it a number of times, I know that it's nowhere near where it should be. It needs to be probably 80, 85 kilometres of trails. I think it's just about 35, 40. But having said that, we need to adapt our businesses and our makeup in town to support those types of activities. Frequently you see cyclists in town and some people get quite heated because the bikes are all stacked up against windows or against each other. So if we're going to jump on board and really push the ecotourism, we need to make sure that the business community and industry adapts to that we cater for that in our building. I also think that we've got to support tourism. We've got to recognise what tourism drives. We've got a strong economy here with educators, and there's great opportunity to take that step from education to see kids move out of underneath the roof where they're engaged in technical activities to get them out and enjoy the great outdoors. And I've got no doubt they're going to be not only future leaders, but they're going to be the future custodians of what we have here today. So it is very important that we get them out there and that they start enjoying outdoors and appreciate what it has to offer. We understand here that the council have done a pretty good job in regards to their waste management. I think there are opportunities to take that further. There are opportunities to engage with new technologies to see if there is industries that are capable of starting up here where they can use those discarded products and reinvigorate them, whether it's through products that can be again used with that recycling process from a distance. I think there's a lot to be gained reducing transport costs and likewise to see that industry occur here. Now the viability and all that is something that's obviously got to be brought to the forefront. So they're the features that I wanted to talk about. I think the kids here are quite excited about everything, and I'm sure they'll look back on us all if we don't do the right thing, and we need to make sure that their futures are looked after. So thanks very much for the opportunity.
And obviously looking back at us, they seem to be staring us down tonight. So thank you all for those answers, and I think all those, highlight the sort of approach that you have for environmental conservation and a safe climate. Needless to say, there's more than 5 minutes of problems we need to solve, and I think I was, we run a tight agenda, so I appreciate that all of you could have said more. And so hopefully this microphones work. So that we're going to sort of allow the candidates to answer as they please. We've got 4 questions to start with that Kathleen put together based on a lot of the work and what we've heard of community over the last couple of years, and then we'll open up the jar of chaos. So the first question we have is, at the end of 2023, we saw catastrophic flooding across the Cairns region. Many lost their homes, and there were long-term changes to our landscape. What do you see as the priorities for council in responding to these changes and the impacts on the environment and people? Does anyone want to kick us off?
Okay. Thanks, Lucy. Obviously, the flood strategy that you put up there is obviously going to be something that we're going to have to factor into. This is a huge issue, and I think the Ross committee is here. I want to acknowledge you, Ross, for the work that you put into this in relation to the emergence of the plans from 1981 and also, of course, from 1997. These are the Barron Delta plans, the surveys, studies that were carried out, and which showed that there should never have been development on that floodplain. And what's the solution?
Someone can get you to sit with everyone so we can share the microphones.
Oh, sorry. Oh, it's coming back. Sorry. Yeah. So basically, in that case, then it was an issue around how we're going to address that and how we come to terms with it in terms of our planning process. And as you probably heard a moment ago, John Knock indicated this would happen many years ago with the push through the Tomatis Creek area. I mean, this is a huge issue. Ultimately, the big decision is going to have to be taken about what we do about the development, particularly in the Holidays Beach area, and whether there are going to be engineering solutions as proposed by Ross, removing the levee banks on the west side of the highway, and also the possibility of changing even the course of the river if it's going to come through there and destroy more houses. And of course, Ross's idea to remove sand from the river, the silt that's built up there to allow the river to flow more. These are going to be huge issues, huge costs, but it's something we have to confront. And I think that the inquiry that's going to take place following the events have to include community input, perhaps even a public hearing, to actually ensure that this never happens again, and in the new planning schemes of the future, that this event and the trauma that it's caused to so many people, and the suffering to so many people on those beaches, is never to occur in the future. Thanks.
And after investigation into, the recent events, do you see a way forward in solving some of these issues?
I probably don't have the solutions myself, but we need to talk to the experts, there's like John Mott, that's Eva Knight, some of the old timers like Ross that have lived in this area for years. So I've written to the IGM, the Inspector General of Emergency Management, who will be doing, I suppose, the debrief into what happened as far as the LDMG is concerned. That's the Local Disaster Management Group. A lot of people don't understand that the Local Disaster Management Group is not Cairns Regional Council. Council is under one cog in a very large wheel of all of the other emergency responders. They're all doing their own individual debriefs. Council's doing its own individual debrief. And as I said before, I've written to the Inspector of Emergency Management asking him to bring that investigation forward, and also to ensure that we hear from all the people that were affected. We need community engagement, because there's some horrendous stories that we've heard. But initially, we've got to get the hydrologists in, we've got to get the surveys in, we have to do the data. Once we've got the data, there will be a lot of work to do. We've got 2 to 3 years where the Work Justice Council to fix what happened. And we don't have the money. That so far at the end of January we were up to $113 million, the cost of Cyclone Jasper and the subsequent flooding, of which we can get back about $79 million at this stage. So we're currently out of pocket $34 million.
We saw the Cairns Post reporting on that today, that whoever takes on this next local government is going to have some real challenges with the, you know, the actual cost of dealing with those floods. Maybe Amy or Paul, did you, want to talk about how you guys might tackle that?
Yeah, well, if I could just comment about the question to start with. Sometimes we're poor learners. Our forefathers had the sense, they didn't have the data that we've got today, but they had the sense to design their houses in a way, and they stayed away from those areas that obviously are flood prone. I think with the data we've got to learn the lessons. The other big hit that's going to come is no doubt the insurers for after the assessment has done. I can see we're all probably going to take a hit around insurance, whether we're in that location. That's the trend that we've seen historically, where they pass on the cost, the burden that they've had to stump up in response to incidents. They share that burden across the community. So I think it is opportunistic that we make sure that we learn from those critical lessons, and there's going to be a lot of hurt in the community for a long time. So those memories of those people that had their homes devastated by water inundation or have otherwise been damaged. So it is going to add to that challenge. It's how we manage the growth when you start looking at reducing the footprint that we've currently got, on the basis that it's not sustainable in regards to the climatic conditions that we face. In regards to the budget, I think it is something that whoever is in council is going to have to show financial responsibility in regards to how they move forward, and what that means in regards to the projects and activities. And like any household, we can't not afford to pay the mortgage and at the same time be at Harvey Norman buying a big screen TV. So we've got to tighten the belts, and what that looks like and what the actual debt is something that time will tell.
I might hand to Amy to start the next question, because I'm going to keep us moving. Sorry, Amy. But our next question was, over the last few years, many members of the Cairns community have raised concerns about the loss of significant trees and Mayoral forests. The significant trees in our CBD and our Mayoral forests, particularly across the beaches. What's your approach to protecting and conserving trees and forests in these areas?
Thank you, Lucy.
Don't forget about your science friends. Carry on, Amy.
I don't think it's an unreasonable comment to say that with our current council, no one has worked harder at trying to save our trees than I have. I didn't quite chain myself to T5, but I worked really hard and tirelessly around saving that tree and trying to communicate with the community. And that was one of the biggest lessons with the Melaleuca that we lost in Palm Cove, was that council are pretty crappy communicators. We need to do better, and we did better in regards to the tree that we unfortunately lost on Collins Avenue. So there was really about the journey of the tree, the treatment that we've been doing, and the tree plotter does play a big role in that for the citizen science and making sure that there's that accountability and transparency of the tree's history. So ultimately, what council needs to do is continue to communicate with the community about the trees, the processes that we're taking, and how we're trying to save the tree and protect it in lengthen its life. But also, we have a new policy, Lucy. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the significant, or we're calling them exceptional trees. So that's a fairly new policy, and I think it's more about a mindset and bringing it into business as usual, BAU, into council, that we actually enact the policy and the intention of that policy there. Because we know that our community wants the trees, but I think it's about the communication of where the trees are, what the appropriate trees are for the street planting, if they're street trees, are they park trees, and how we can have these little pockets of beautiful runs. I did recently learn that Munro Martin Park could have potentially been a CBD lung, like a mini forest completely planted out, and how that would just completely be a game changer for all that residential living that we're trying to get into the CBD. So really putting trees on the forefront, but I think the policy that we have is a really good starting point, but we've got to move it from paper into our practice.
Yeah, I did know about that policy, but I think the majority of the community probably haven't heard of it. And I think, maybe I'm keen for the other candidates to talk about this too, but to be clear, because it has come up a lot, you know, it took 8 months of work with the community and council together to get one tree protected. We don't want to do that for every tree. It's really hard work. So what we're talking about is how do we proactively create a situation where the community doesn't have to fight for every tree in Cairns. What can we do to give us a break?
As I mentioned, I help set up Tree Water and work with the council, and I'm working with the council on a regular basis through the subgroup. And that Tree Water, actually, what we do with the environmental group, the Cairns Birders and BirdLife Australia, is we look at the term of significant trees. So we look at the significant trees and we mark them. And then that goes to council and to Peter Taylor and those in council to ensure that any work or any approach to those trees is looked at and and marked. This is a coloration on the scheme which says that tree is not to be touched, and it's certainly not to be touched during the nesting season of the Torres Strait pigeons, and of course not touch trees where there are rufous owls nesting. So the tree water is a real step forward in doing that. Ultimately, to your question, Lucy, what needs to be done is there need to be penalties. I mean, the fact is, if people drop down a tree in Brisbane, it's a $10,000 fine. And there is a wherewithal within council. I mean, it is a carrot and stick approach. Obviously, the carrot is making people love trees, appreciate them and all of that. That's part of our ongoing love of the environment, our education program. But the stick is, you do it, and it's not done in the correct way, there's a big penalty. And we are so weak in following through with penalties when people do the wrong thing.
I'm going to keep moving so we can get to the questions from the audience. So, Terry, I know I'm a feisty facilitator. We continue to experience back-to-back heat waves in the Cairns region. We've talked a little bit about the solutions. What do you think, you would prioritise for reducing heat impacts, particularly in the Cairns region, both for the human communities and for our wildlife? We saw those pictures of fish kills. You were around when we experienced that mass flying fox death, Terry. So maybe we can start with you and go to Paul for looking at how can we move forward with heat impacts in our region.
Designing our buildings better. I'm a building designer by profession, and I did, I suppose, in the early days, give some guidance to the original planning scheme and the proper design of some of our buildings. So I'm just doing that. And what reason I said that in what I was saying, and Union Council will plant more trees. We're currently doing 45,000 seedlings a year now, and we will increase that by 30%, but it has to be planned and integrated into our planning scheme, and that's coming up at the end of this year, so that's where we encourage everyone to put their thoughts together, and we can add, the best planning schemes are horrendous now, but we can be a little bit more explicit, I suppose, in how we deal with this, and just rather than just leave it up to developers and builders.
We're excited to see a biodiversity-focused Cairns plan.
Absolutely.
And Paul, do you think you have any strategies there to share?
Yeah, look, I think the planning, making sure that future developments, the design doesn't have the problem, that we look at opportunities for reducing the problem, that we do look at encouraging developments to embrace green spaces and to look into what we can do to return those areas that are no longer useful or are found to be problematic in regards to building areas, that create more biodiversity areas such as the wetlands and that, so that you create greater opportunities for people to come and visit those. Again, building on our tourism footprint and our ecotourism footprint in particular, the more we grow that type of activity. Interestingly, I see a lot, and I think Dennis is a avid
bird watcher, but I have been down the Esplanade a number of times early in the morning, and it amazes me how many people, overseas tourists, that specifically come here to undertake that activity. So I think part of the communication strategy should be also to really market to the community the value of doing this. The value of creating opportunities for people to come and wonder at what Cairns as a council and as a region offers to those types of people that obviously travel the world looking for those types of spaces.
What was happening in my head then, Paul, was imagining Saltwater Creek, with all of those surrounding plots redeveloped into wetlands. There's tourism, walks guided through there. Nimoy, we've got cultural walks going through there. So I think these are some of the things we can see. Our last question from Kathleen is, public and active transport and waste are always big environmental and social issues for our region. I've packed 3 in there: public transport, active transport, and waste. I don't think everyone needs to talk about all of them, but I want to give you each an opportunity just to say, what you think the priority is there. So we'll start at Amy and come across.
Thanks, Lucy. Well, they're all really quite important. Obviously, waste is a huge, significant one, and I don't know if many people in the room know we have thousands of units in Cairns that don't have any recycling facilities. So all of their recycling waste goes into their red bin, as you put it, and has to be sorted. So that costs us more money, and obviously we can't get it all, and some does go into landfill. So making sure that our unit developments, when we talk about our city growing and building that density, they need to have the appropriate recycling facilities in their complexes. That's really, really important. I think it's also important that we adapt and our change with our active transport. Many cities across the world and of course across Australia have what they call end of active transport hubs. And can you imagine one, say at Palm Cove, for example, after you've done the Wongedi Trail or you've done the Northern Beach Pleasure Trail and you've got somewhere to have a shower, secure your bike, and obviously take in the beautiful surrounds. So I think thinking differently and making sure our infrastructure supports that activity and that lifestyle is really important. I'll let the others.
Thanks, Amy.
Obviously public transport, huge. Everybody says we need more buses. That's got to be a part of that integrated plan that I mentioned. How we can make it, whether it's trackless trams or how it's done, but in that consultation that will take place about the growth of Cairns and what it's going to look like, we need to be looking at much better public transport options than currently exist. And I'm suggesting things like a go-kart, the opportunities for people to go and public transport need to be incentivized, low cost or free for children or things of that nature. In relation to waste, given the shortage of time, I'll just speed on to that. There are 3 waste opportunities in Cairns that we need to be looking at. One is the issue around plastics at the MRF. They do a great job there. Scotty does a great job teaching the kids and also teaching the older people as well who go in there and learn about the waste stream. But there is an enhancement that now exists through the RDA Regional Development Authority where you can actually change the workings there a little bit. That's something I'll be looking at from elected as mayor in relation to an enhancement that allows the separation of plastics. There's 7 types of plastic that are currently not separated at the facility. Also the issue around, you've all heard about FOMO. And there's the issue now that we have, which is a real big one out in the reef, of course, is FOGO, and that's food organic and garden organics. And this is a thing that's really being pushed now with people coming off the reef. Where does that go? We need to be adding that back into the circular economy. There's a huge opportunity for us to perhaps develop little bins, certainly give people more compost bins, and the idea that we can benefit from the circularity instead of it going into the waste stream is something that I think Council really needs to have a big hand in. And already private enterprises are doing that in the restaurant sector and also on the reef and getting rid of that waste that comes down for other purposes.
Thank
Finally,
you.
just in relation to electronic waste, that's the third option that council has to add on that's not being done sufficiently at the moment within the circular economy. Those three are the real things in relation to add-ons that could exist in relation to waste. I'll stop there.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thanks, Lucy. Can I just read out a couple of extracts from our latest State of the Environment report? Cairns recorded the lowest landfill rates in almost a decade. And also, the 16th report recorded the first full year of operation of our new $16 million materials recovery facility, which can handle up to 30 tonnes of recycling each year. And last year, we achieved an 81% recovery rate. That's a 30% increase on the previous facility. So the numbers are there, and we're doing it. And this improved landfill conversion rate meant that there was 138 less truckloads going up the range to landfill. So that's something incredible. We also want to finish off the Northern Beach Leisure Trail. We've done the easy bits, we're now getting on to the hard bits, so we need to advocate for funding. It's not something that council has got the spare funds to do that, but I think the state government are on board. They like what we're doing there, and that'll allow you to go on a push bike in Gordon and get all the way through to the northern beaches. So that's what we'll aim for very shortly in the future.
I look forward to not riding on the highway.
Yeah, thanks Lucy for the question, and I've got to commend the council because I think that bike ride encouraging kids in particular and the elderly to engage in not only healthy activities but that social activity that we see with small groups of people riding around. I'll go back to my previous point, but the town or the business community need to adapt to that cycling is a preferred option, and they need to cater for that outside their businesses. There needs to be opportunities at the workplace where people can safely leave their bikes and get ready for work. So I think there's a little bit more work there where we can coerce people in, that's a sensational bike track once it's finished. And I think that in itself will bring a lot of people here. Interestingly, at the airport, we've got a lot of activities around mountain biking and also cycling in general, but you get to the airport and there's nowhere to put your bicycle together. I've been to Rotorua, which is used to be a mountain bike mecca. Derby's overtaken that, but you can actually take your bike out of a bike bag there, assemble it because there's an area there, there's tools there to do that, and you can actually check your bike bag in for later and ride off into the horizon. And I think there are opportunities to do those sorts of things here. In regards to waste, I do think there's opportunities for bespoke businesses encouraging kids through design to repurpose products and that, so that we create that artefact that could be a little bit of a spin-off industry there. And so I think we really have to look to innovation to some of these things to create what's currently a problem to obviously something in the future that might derive a business opportunity for many people. So thank you.
And I think we're all excited for the day we can get on an electric bus from the airport and go home. I think we all see a lot of our backpackers walking from the airport. And yeah, we haven't got a lot of time left, so we're going to, with the questions from the audience, I'm going to be a little bit cheeky, and we're just going to go down the line, and each question, one question will get one candidate to answer, so it's going to be a bit scattergun. We have a whole heap of kids from TAS here, and they have actually emailed in questions in advance. So I'm going to invite one of you guys up to ask one of your questions. Come on down. Let's give them a hand, guys. They're great. One of your questions here at the podium, and please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Lee Estelle, and I'm from TAS. And our question is, what percentage of natural environment in Cairns is currently protected, and how hard is it to get that protection overturned?
Thank you. So, it's a tough question. Exactly what percentage of our environment is protected, and how hard is it to overturn that? Does anyone want to tackle that question? It's great. Maybe if we don't know what percentage is protected, I think it's a good sign we've got some homework to do. But maybe we could say, what does it take to overturn the environmental protection in Cairns at the moment? Is that a difficult thing? We're talking about the environmental codes and the planning scheme. We're talking about our conservation parks.
I think we've got a fair amount that's protected now. You know, you can't, we no longer build on the mountains, we can't build in the swamps, you know, and then you can't build in the rural areas. There's a lot of protection that we've got now. We've just got to beef it up a bit, you know.
Maybe I can help with this question. I think maybe it's something that we've got a new planning scheme coming in, and the last time, Mark Buttress is somewhere in the audience here, we've had a couple of meetings around the fact that we've seen codes in our planning scheme that have been conservation, that have reversed and gone towards development. How do we stop that from happening and keep conservation as conservation?
You've got to make submissions to the planning scheme. I've been around for a very long time and gone through a lot of planning schemes, and the biggest thing that I see when you stand in the shopping centres and you go to the public, and our staff are always out there. You'll see Deb and her team out there all the time. We don't get enough people to take notice and put submissions in, and that's what we need to do. There's just too much complacency. You can't wait until it's happening in your backyard. You need to get in early.
Okay, and maybe is there anyone who wants to answer what the council can do?
I'll just say very quickly, and Terry makes the point, the planning scheme is very flexible, and that's the point that you're getting at sometimes with it's a term called code-accessible, and sometimes it's a big term, but it means that sometimes there isn't a community consultation that's adequate. And so what we're trying to push for, particularly with the new plan, and particularly with the regional plan coming up, and I think most people agree, particularly after what happened in the Barra Delta, we need to tighten our planning codes. We need to tighten our planning. And I think that is something that is far too determined. That's probably we need to reintroduce as prescriptive far more than the sort of free market laissez-faire or deregulated form that it currently takes. And I think that that's something that we're learning. I've been pushing this for a long time, but I think what happened in the Barra Delta has been a wake-up call, and I think now we're all pretty much on the same page that we need to tighten that substantially into the future.
I'm going to move on to the next question now, because I've got 4 cards that ask the same question, which is, it's not that. How will you progress reconciliation if you're elected as mayor? I'm happy for you guys to come in on that. Anyone who wants to answer this? Maybe someone other than Terry or, actually let's go Paul or Amy. Sorry, just because you guys haven't spoken to us recently.
It's a really easy one for Team Eden. It's on our 100-day plan that we will have a fully endorsed reconciliation plan.
Which is what?
And Paul?
Can I just address that?
Yep, sorry, Paul and Amy.
So, as you know, the reconciliation plan came to council last year and was not successfully endorsed. Terry and Rob Pine voted in support of it. The reason why the majority of the councillors had shared some concerns with the administration that it wasn't ready to come to council, and I think this is a really important note. However, the councillors believe, and I'm of that belief, that the administration had their own agenda, and that was to have it ready for, I believe it was Reconciliation Week or NAIDOC Week, which is, very commendable. However, we wanted to have any references to Path to Treaty and to the voice taken out because we wanted it to be solely focused on Cairns Regional Council, local government. And that didn't happen in time for that to go to the meeting. At the end of that meeting, there was business not on the agenda, and it was fully endorsed by all the councils, so it was unanimous that we would prioritise the reconciliation plan. Unfortunately, the Unity-led council haven't enacted that commitment and brought it back to council. So it's a no-brainer. It will be in the 100-day plan and delivered.
Yeah, I haven't seen the plan itself, and I don't know what the implications of the plan has or what consultation has occurred. So I'm not really in a position to answer that. The other thing, go back to the budget issue, I'm not quite sure what the implications financially might be of that plan as well. So before I commit to it, I'd want to be fully briefed on what it is and what the consultation was and what the costs may be that fall out of it.
It's a hot topic, so I'll throw it to Terry and Dennis.
I suppose why I voted for it, I'm more familiar with it because I'm the only councillor that turned up to the first Indigenous Advisory Committee. I'm there every committee. The other councillors weren't, so they weren't informed enough. So I don't think they were against it, they just weren't informed enough to make a quick decision. Would that be right with me? So it needed, but it's definitely on the agenda. It's got to get past the council elections and the caretaker period and get moving. But we were one of the first councils in the country to have a RAP.
Dennis?
Yeah, the First Nations committee actually ends, and I think it's in March or April, and so there's a big question mark as well about what's going to happen after that. So a community first, Dennis Wolseley Council will certainly be looking at reinvigorating and making that council, that committee, full on active in getting this stage 3 RAP plan fully through and with full engagement with that committee in relation to many of the issues that we haven't discussed tonight, particularly in relation to the one that we discussed on the weekend down in Edmonton in relation to some of the issues around housing and crime and public transport. And there's a huge role for that committee to play in that space as well. Thanks.
Thanks everyone. I think it's clear from the popularity of it on this issue that we can all see that culture and country and the environment are not isolated, and that protecting culture protects country, protecting country protects culture. There's a lot of questions in here about development on the northern beaches and what the plan is for development on the northern beaches. I'm going to read out one question, which is kind of repeated in here, which is why are we allowing so much housing development on the northern beaches without enough infrastructure, I guess servicing them, but I'd imagine also something that we get emails about every couple of weeks is more tree clearing on the northern beaches. So yeah, does anyone have sort of response to why is that happening? What can we do to make sure that we're looking after those northern beaches forests? Dennis, jump in, you look ready.
I mean, it is something obviously that I'm very involved in and been active in. Look, the issue really is around what kind of planning we're anticipating for the future. It's very haphazard, it's ad hoc at the moment, and this is a problem really when it comes to this issue. That's why I keep saying we need to have an integrated plan, urban and transport plan, that will have a consultation and a discussion around what our future development might look like, particularly our housing development. We all agree that there's a possibility of high-rise in the CBD groups already at these buildings that are not being used, and we can, commercial space can be put across into accommodation, and we can use that for multi-purpose. There's multi-unit, multi-purpose development there for accommodation, for retail, and for commercial as well, all in one. But the big difficulty is what do we do with medium density? And that we have to bring the Australian community along. We have to have a conversation, it's not being held. We have to have a big conversation about what medium density might mean in various suburbs around Australia if the population is going to grow, as everybody says it is. And just think about this, every year in Cairns, 2,500 people come, and the projected population increase to 2050 is 70,000. Now, we have a problem already with people living in Cairns, people living on the streets. We've got 6,000 people who are desperately seeking decent accommodation. And at this stage, we still haven't got a major focus on how we're going to take this forward with the growth that's projected under the growth strategy of 2050. So that conversation is something that needs to be out in the public arena, and we need to try and bring people along in that conversation about the reality that we're going to face in the future.
Thanks, Dan. So I'll throw to Terry, and we're actually at 7:30 now, so we are officially over time. So I'm going to ask you, I might invite you to make a comment on that, and then I'm going to invite one more comment from everyone before we
Actually, we're
close.
doing it right now. It's called the 2050 Growth Strategy, and that's what it's all about. We have to have some very tough conversations about this one, and we've got to turn a lot of NIMBYs into YIMBYs, because that's the problem we've got now. Everyone doesn't want it in their backyard, but they're happy to have it in somebody else's backyard. So that's what this is all about. We've had 12,000 touch points so far, so right there, and going. So this will, around the end of this year or early next year, we'll get to the end of this one. So you need to make your submissions to this, but we have to densify. And it's easy to do the small lots on the block of land, you know, where the eaves touch the side boundary, there's no room for a tree. We've got to change that, and I've got some ideas how to change that with the new planning scheme and changing the housing code. We have to allow for, and I've got some examples which I haven't got here tonight, but how to do it. And you might have a small block of land, for example, and they are getting smaller, where the back corner is 5 metres by 5 metres that you do not build in. That touches the neighbour's yard, which is another 5 metres by 5 metres, and the neighbour over the back. So you end up 10 by 10, where you can plant some decent trees, and you can get that greening back into the design of your houses.
Okay, so we're sort of at time, and we didn't quite answer how we're going to stop the clearing on the northern beaches and the development issues. And we've got a lot of questions that haven't been answered tonight, and a lot in here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to send these questions to our candidates, who in their own time can respond, and if they do, I'll publish those on our website with their permission. But what I want to finish with, and I apologise because I know there are so many questions that didn't get answered tonight. But what I want to finish with, because we always like to finish with hope, is if each candidate can just take literally a moment to tell us what will Cairns look like by 2030 if you're the mayor and you're looking after the environment. A little bit of a vision. What's it going to look like? Just give us a little bit of hope, because it's a bit grim out there at the moment.
So I think it'll be a town that everyone's proud of, that they're proud to live here, they're proud to work here. They look forward to visiting from interstate, intrastate, and also from overseas. That our children and our grandchildren are proud of the work that's been done in council. So it's not about the 4 years in office, but it's a legacy 10, 15, 20 years later that the viable planning that went on not only sustains the growth but balances the nature and the environment for all to enjoy into the future.
Thank you, Paul. Terry?
I think we've come a long way already. That's why Cairns is the best place to live, work and play. We need to build on that, and I think we can build on that with our growth strategy and the next planning scheme. But I think, we get a lot of feedback now from tourists who come to this town to tell us how beautiful it is compared to where they've come from. And they're unsolicited emails, which a lot of people don't see. Is that right, Amy? Yeah. So we'll build on it, and I think with the right people at the helm, it'll get bigger and better.
Thank you, Terry. Dennis?
Well, a green and clean environment, it will be along a linear corridor. It will incorporate some things already said, with a wonderful public transport system, maybe using trackless trams. It will be a cheap way of transport because it will incentivize people to leave their cars at home. It will be a town that uses the CBD to its full potential. It will be a green centre. We'll be building along models that are already being used in subtropical and tropical places. Particularly, of course, a benchmark is always Singapore when it comes to how we can do that. We can become a smaller version. We can actually make that CBD into something that is really worth being proud of, along with a thought-through, integrated plan that brings together all of the things we've been discussing tonight in relation to housing, transport, water, our green corridor, and our green spaces particularly, and of course tree protections that will actually be something that we adhere to. In other words, people don't just chop down trees. There'll be a $10,000 penalty.
Thanks, Dennis. Amy?
2030, Lucy? Sure.
I'm
Maybe a Garden of Eden. Of course it will. We will have achieved our climate change plan of zero emissions. That's important. We'll have a city that is thriving economically because we're taking advantage of all our beautiful green assets and our blue carbon. We'll have our density in our suburban areas of Smithfield, CBD, and Edmonton where the infrastructure is. And we'll have active transport hubs, and we'll be physically, emotionally, and environmentally in a really good place, connected and communicating about a better Cairns, inviting visitors to come and enjoy and remember how we fell in love with it, that they will fall in love with it just as much.
Thanks, Amy. And can we have a thank you for all of our panelists for coming tonight?